Hi, everybody. Welcome to Deeply Human Leading. I'm Leanne Del Carpio, and I'm here with Gretchen Terry-Leonard. And today we wanted to dive into how we can lead ourselves forward when waves upon waves of AI innovation and disruption shake the ground. What can hold us steady? Now, Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank fame owns more than 50 companies that use AI, and he has gone on record recently to say if you're a CEO deploying AI and you're just pushing a button to generate more AI output, you're generating more AI slop, as he calls it, kind of garbage, right? Then you're actually generating value. And he calls out other skills, fundamentally human skills, that are more important when leading any kind of organization or teams, small to enterprise wide, forward within AI. At the same time, there are others out there like Peter Diamandis who are actually outlining kind of waves of evolution with AI driving some disruption initially with jobs, as we all know and are concerned about, potential deflationary impact that a lot of us are also very concerned about, and then ultimately where does that leave us? And so no one has a crystal ball, but what are some of the skills or mindsets that are needed underneath those waves that will help us navigate through? And that's what we wanted to dive into first. So, Gretchen,
Yes.
um, Kevin O'Leary had an interesting comment about, the you're dead in the water if you're a CEO, if you're just pushing the button and using AI. And he called out at least one skill that well, maybe two that I know you're a big fan of,
Yeah.
storytelling and critical thinking skills. Tell us more about like what you saw in that news piece.
Well, as you said, the ability to tell a story is critical. And we've reported on this several times. You know, that even McKinsey was saying they're interested in hiring people
Mm.
that have, just a bachelor's of arts, a very well rounded, liberal arts background. And that is, that is a shout out to all the liberal arts background
Yeah.
people, storytellers, creatives.
Mm-hmm.
This is your ability to actually move the needle through customer acquisition, through connection, and telling stories that connect to our human needs. And instead of just churning out, lots of words that are factual and mildly engaging, the difference between creating a good hook that is felt by the reader, or that the product feels engineered for the human versus just engineered to ship. And I feel like with this new wave, because you can do things so quickly, people are having a lot of fun with it and they're trying it out. And that's where the garbage comes. Some things are really great. And then some things are just simply below mediocre. And you're like, oh, that was AI, or I don't trust that, which erodes trust. So I think Kevin is really highlighting something, even without naming it, which is the human that tells the story is someone you trust, someone you can engage with, and that using AI for the sake of being able to tell your board that you're using it, or your employees that you're using it, unless you have some very deep intention behind it and structure behind it and an understanding and buy-in, you might be just creating some slop.
Yeah, and I think Kevin quantifies it a lot, right? As an investor
Yes.
in a Shark Tank scenario, of course, you're looking at not only the business model, but can I trust the human judgment behind the CEO, right? That's leading this effort, that they're going to be making wise decisions to also scale. And then he also tries to quantify it in terms of if you're an employee and you have only technical competence, but you are lacking that ability to understand the narrative of how you're creating value for other humans, and you lack the critical thinking skills, you're actually going to not be able to command a higher salary. And in some of the articles, he claims jumps of over $100,000 of what could be possible if you had those human skills alongside the technical skills. Now, obviously, we'll have to put that into practice to see, but I think it's something I don't even just as an individual consumer, when you're choosing stocks that you want to invest in individually, I often look at the whole CEO and the senior leadership team and not only their strategy and their earnings and the rest of that, but like, do I trust that they have good human wisdom and critical thinking skills? And do I trust the story that they're telling me?
Mhm.
Or is there something kind of a little bit off in the story, right? So
Mhm.
that's a capability that will help us all, no matter what role, no matter what evolving practice we want to have in our career or even in our families. We can anchor down into our own critical thinking skills as well as refined storytelling skills.
Mhm. And for leaders who are in on the inside, it's really how are you showing up as a leader? Have you been running on autopilot and now AI just actually expands autopilot and therefore,
Hmm.
you can go from being rather credible because it was done by humans to losing trust overnight because AI shipped a story that wasn't either real or aligned with your services or your ethos. So it's really important to put guardrails on these tools. I think that's another place that we have opportunity for our own agency, our own human agency. Okay, so I have a question for you. For the listener who just realized that they don't know who they are apart from their job title, when they hear all the jobs are going to disappear like snowflakes and the fear starts to come,
Yeah, of course.
what is the first step when they're like, but I'm a broadcast journalist, I'm a writer, I'm an advertising executive. What and where does their work begin?
So AI pours gasoline on everything. So if you are not clear on who you are aside from your title or your credentials or your current lane that you normally operate within, and there's confusion underneath, it will magnify the confusion that you have, right? So for many years, I have worked with leaders in one-on-one coaching sessions as well as in leadership development workshops, executive ed spaces, where we help leaders really get clear on not just their brand, like a brand like you would market yourself inside of an organization. A lot of career coaching has you get clear on what your leadership brand is, but at a deeper level, um, who who really are you aside from your title? And by the way, we have other roles besides our work titles. We are perhaps daughter, sister, mother, friend, coach, community baseball coach. I don't know, whatever roles that you play in your life. And there's an exercise I do in my coaching program, Recalibrate for Impact, where we actually look at who you are underneath all of those different roles. And it's a whole process to actually examine when you take all those roles away, who are you underneath that and what do you actually care about and like what are your gifts. And there's another process where you can ask 5 to 7 close friends and family members what's the impact that you bring, good, bad, or ugly, and ask them for 3 words. No one can give you 3 words. They'll give you like 3 sentences, but just ask for 3 words. Ask for like, don't overthink it. Give me the 3 words of how I show up. And this is like direct feedback. If you didn't do a formal 360, you just want to get some feedback on what your impact is that you're bringing to the world around you. That will give you an inkling of how you're showing up. And then you can look at that list of words, group them together, and first of all, ask yourself, is this what I intended? like it, or, and then also if it's not, what did I intend? Who am I that could bring some greater value? Because maybe people are not receiving that. And so there's a series of questions that we go through in the coaching space that gets down to, I call it like your divine genius, meaning we're each born with some kind of unique capability that we can bring to the table. And we often, it's like a prism. It can kind of be shared in different ways, in different roles, and different applications in our life. But unless we take charge of what that that genius is and how we're going to actually share it in different ways in our lives, it becomes diffuse, right? And it's not necessarily named. I think leaders have been, just in my practice over 25 years, notoriously bad at doing this unless they have had some deeper personal or spiritual practice that kind of guided them towards that. So I think that's the first step to really getting clear on what you want to not just use AI for a task, but who are you and who are you becoming? Like, what kind of value do you want to add in this like crazy changing world? Start with what you stand for. Start with,
Mhm.
here's a gift that I bring no matter what. My role, my title, my way that I do this might change, but here's one thing I definitely think that I have some amount of gift around and want to bring and share with the
Mhm.
world. This is important to me. Even writing that down in your own kind of personal statement and then actually anchoring that into your instructions with your AI assistant or with the agents that you're building will start to shape its understanding of you. And then after, over time, as you're interacting with it, you can ask it questions like, what do you notice my gift might be? And what do you notice that I'm really passionate about? And what do you think makes me
Mhm.
really excited? What makes me somewhat depleted or sad
Mhm.
or frustrated? And I think what I like about some of the work that's out there when we talk about these waves of disruption, and whether Peter Diamandis is right or not, there will be successive waves of disruption. But if we do not know who we are underneath that, it's going to be harder to navigate those waves. So
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I believe especially in your second prime. So, as you know, I wrote a book called Your Second Prime: Does Aging Suck or Do We Suck at Aging? And you call it, divine wisdom, and I believe that is such a beautiful way of putting it. I say, what is your inconvenient dream? That one thing that you're like, gosh, if I could do this, I've always wanted to do this, or if I had all the money in the world, or if I had all the time in the world, I would do this. And what I've noticed about everyone's inconvenient dream, having researched the book for over 4 years, is that people's inconvenient dream are always in service to humanity. If you really get down deep to it, it's our innate need to serve each other. And when we're asking for what's the purpose of life, my belief without reservation is that our purpose is to love each other and to serve each other as a whole. Now, that is not what we're seeing right now. So we have an opportunity with disruption. And as my friend Harold Nusser says, never waste a good crisis. And I think in many ways, disruption can also be called a crisis, but we can say never wasted good disruption without finding where you can stand when the ground is shaking, trembling, and perhaps falling beneath you, that you know what you stand for and what your divine gifts should be. And much of it is you can gather that information from your friends and family and the people you work with by showing how you show up. And again, finding out if you're congruent with that and if you're aligned with that. And the other thing is really tapping into your somatic system and saying, does that feel good to me? Does that feel aligned? And if you are feeling uneasy right now, number one, that's normal because we're in the midst of an absolute sea change in the way humanity, society, economics, business, learning, government, everything is up for grabs right now. And with our agency, it is something that we can do is to have calmness in an uncomfortable situation, determine our inner gifts and stick with them. That's the other thing. Not trying to be all things to all people, but saying, these three things I would sacrifice for. And I don't want to be overly dramatic, but the things that you believe so deeply that there is no leaving them behind um, in the power of any context.
And you can't get there if your nervous system is seriously dysregulated, which is the majority of leaders that unfortunately we interact with, because the waves of change are coming so rapidly. The AI improvements is one piece of it, but this whole utopian or dystopian reality, the
Right.
application of AI in our geopolitical situation right now, and like just the larger questions of what this means for humanity can trigger more fear and anxiety. And in that space of severe dysregulation, it's very hard to be like, who am I under my rules? It's,
Yes.
but if we don't do it or find a way into that now, the wave will actually carry you further. And I would say that different organizations are going to have a narrative that they want us to also listen to, like, or believe in, like, okay, train towards this skill. I don't think we can actually, it wasn't like the Industrial Revolution when we stopped using, looms by hand and we went to the Industrial Revolution. You could just train in a factory then. Well, now AI eliminates entire categories of jobs. It's not like you're going to just retool. So the deeper work, I think, is a necessity now, along with the technical skills that you'll be learning, because otherwise you cannot even discern when the waves are hitting you what is a right place to focus your time and effort, right?
Yeah, like calmness will be the superpower to
For
say,
sure.
I am okay. My family is okay. My business is okay. We will be okay because we are centered and grounded in our beliefs, ethos, and what we stand for. And we can navigate, right? The ability to navigate difficulty because of a strong center. That doesn't mean you won't have fear, self doubt, all of those things. But a calm mind navigates exponential change
Yeah.
at a rate that is far superior than a panicked mind. I mean, we know when we panicked, you literally you become scrambled eggs. You're like, oh,
Right. And so I can see someone listening to this going, okay, I can work on finding my calm, and I can work on uncovering who I am and what I stand for, my kind of my purpose, my inconvenient truth, my divine genius, whatever, call it whatever you want,
yeah,
something that I care about. But that ain't going to pay the bills, ladies,
yeah,
like literally. And you would be right that we need to take action beyond that. This is not a, smoke and like, think about like
I
the
like the
pot.
mushrooms, but
Yeah.
yeah, yes,
But no, I mean, you have to actually, this is a necessity for generating value,
yeah,
and generating value and impact translates to how you can command income in a rapidly changing environment. And we cannot predict. Okay, I'm looking at these waves of change that Peter Diamandis and others at the recent Abundance 360 Summit mapped out. I think Elon Musk was there as well. Wave 1, 2025 through 2028, automation and job displacement, the equivalent of 25 years of the Industrial Revolution
in
displacement
2 years,
compressed into 2 years.
I,
Um, and this is like where AI is just like electricity. Like it's the exponential function. It's so mind-bogglingly hard to comprehend, and it's hard to convey to our young people what that means for career opportunities, right?
Mhm.
Wave 2, 2028 through 2031, and I'm sure everybody has differences on the years, so take this with a huge grain or maybe shaker of salt. But robot labor and deflation, prices collapse exponentially. The cost of intelligence approaches zero. Diamandis said, Optimus robots then build me a beautiful mansion for the cost of raw materials. And then this is where the conversation around universal basic income comes into play, because everything costs a tenth of what it does. It's starting to get further out, and for most of us, that might be like, I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't know, right? And then wave 3, 2031 to 2036, the post-scarcity abundance, work becomes optional. So for those of us, again, with a mortgage and like I got 2 kids I'm putting through college. Okay, well, that's lovely that it's optional, but we're gonna, well, maybe college is not necessary anymore, but you get my point. I'd
Yes,
like to
yes.
feed them. Um, and so the question shifts from how do I get a job to what do I actually want my life to be about? I do not think we're all going to be smoking peace pipes on the top of the mountain, but I do think that there are ways that we can be creating value in community. And if we don't begin the exploration on what we want to magnify, again, if AI pours gasoline on everything, what what do you want to
Right.
have amplified?
Right. Oh
You
my gosh, Leanne, I think that is such a critical, that is a critical comment. And not only have you been, you know, insightful and funny today, great. But if AI, absolutely, what do we want to expand beyond, and who are the people in the world that are going to dive in right now that shapes, again, not happening to us but happening for us, that shapes the future? What do you want amplified is probably the most important question we can ask ourselves.
Yep.
And that you have agency, and staying on the sidelines, I think, would be either being complicit with someone else's design, because
Right.
you're just saying, I'll just let somebody else decide for me.
And do they have our best interests at heart would be a huge question that I would ask as well. So if we don't stay on the sidelines and we just begin some exploration around who we are and what value we want to add, that is a very solid place to begin. But it does require that you create that calm, a little space in your life. And well, maybe we can put in the link below a couple of, we can do a link to your second prime as well as Recalibrate for Impact. I'm sure other people have other practices that help you get at that kind of core value that you have to offer. But this is like at a soul level, guys. And this is, mark my words, I think the more things get automated and faster, we're going to see more of a return back to not only what's deeply human, but like what's really soulfully ours that we want to give back to this world. So
And that we want to retain, grow, foster, and learn. Like, there are more deeply human things that we could be doing, that we could, instead of doing expenses. Like, I think that sounds like fun.
there's many things I would like to automate away for sure. And I do think that we can create a totally different reality, but that a lot of that power does come from within. So I hope that today's invitation for you lands, and as a first step to uncovering, or even if you've begun that step, a second step to refining what you want amplified in the world around you. Check out the links below, and we'll see you next time on Deeply Human Leading.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending this time with us. If something landed, sit with it. That pause is actually where the real work happens. And if you're navigating this shift at your organization and you'd like to bring this conversation inside your walls, go ahead and find us at deeplyhumanleading.com. If today's episode landed with you, share it with somebody that you think could really use it. The ripple starts there. Until next time, stay curious and stay human.